Hello, my friends! I hope you're doing well today and welcome to our /PettyRevenge, where my two favorite things in life come together, a good laugh and a good revenge on people who deserve it. Today, we've got 9 deliciously petty stories. In the first, a condescending vegan cuts in line at an Asian fusion restaurant only to grab the wrong order, chicken fried rice instead of her tofu lo mein. The second story features a photographer enlarging a rude dad's head in family photos after he ruins a shoot. Third, a secretary calls an annoying coworker's fake quitting bluff, throwing her a retirement party. Stay for the laughs, hit subscribe, and enjoy. This first story is titled, Be a Condescending Jerkish Vegan Trying to Order Carryout? Enjoy a decidedly non-vegan meal when you get home. I never really believed in the stereotype of the condescending, holier-than-thou vegan. I figured it was an invention of omnivores who like to make fun of vegans and project some kind of judgmental attitude on them. Then I met her. She came into this really solid Asian fusion restaurant that does carry-out. She was talking to her friend, and the gist of the conversation was that she was appalled to even be in the restaurant since the food didn't count as vegan because they also served meat. In fact, for the 10 minutes that I knew her, she basically had nothing nice to say about anyone or anything. It was pretty spectacular listening to one person manage to say nothing nice for about 10 minutes. She could win gold in the Jerk Olympics! I'd been standing in line patiently, waiting to place an order, with one person in front of me. As she walked in, the person finished ordering, at which point she breezed by me like I didn't exist and said, "I'd like a tofu lo mein." The woman behind the counter looked at me, and I coughed politely and said, "I'm sorry, I was here first." This elicited the biggest, most "how dare you waste my time" eye roll I've ever seen as she wordlessly stepped back with a huff. I ordered my chicken fried rice, then she ordered her tofu lo mein, and we stepped back to wait for the food. 10 minutes later, the first order popped up, at which point this woman, mindlessly chatting with her friend about how much someone they both knew was a total jerk and a waste of a life, swiped the order without even thinking. Without so much as a thank you, she stormed for the door. I'm pretty sure she was in a desperate hurry to ruin other people's evenings elsewhere. My first thought was, isn't it likely that my order finished before yours? I almost said it, but then I realized she was storming out with the meal she really didn't want. The next meal popped up about 2 minutes later. I grabbed it, knowing there was a solid chance it was tofu. I thanked the nice woman behind the counter and left without stopping to open it, afraid that if I wasted a second, that angry shrew might storm back and correct her oversight. I triumphantly ate a tofu lo mein back at home that night. Well, I ate the lo mein and picked around the tofu. I don't know if that harpy returned to demand her correct meal, or if she just got home, realized it was chicken fried rice, and threw it away dejectedly. I just hope she felt some level of the misery she seemed to enjoy forcing on everyone around her. The sad thing about this story is that Karen, at one point, probably opened the box, realized the employee at the restaurant gave her the wrong food, and likely went back to raise heck on that poor employee because she's a Karen. This next story is titled, Never Tick Off the Photographer. I am not a professional photographer, but friends and family ask me to take photos for them all the time. I love portrait photography, and I'm happy to do the favor, but sometimes people are really awful and annoying, and then it really grates that I'm spending my evenings and weekends shooting and processing photos for free. A few years ago, I had a really bad client. A colleague asked me to do a family shoot on Mother's Day. I knew I'd have the morning to work with before I went to see my own mom, so I accepted. It was going to be at a winery in the country, and my colleague offered to pay for me to join them for brunch. Bonus! We carpooled, and it wasn't until we got there that I realized it wasn't just going to be me, my colleague, her husband, and her kids. It was my colleague's husband's entire family, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, parents, and even both grandmas, 27 people. I immediately panicked about how long it was going to take to do the shoot. I mentioned to my colleague and her husband that I had to leave in 3 hours to get back for my family's Mother's Day. Her husband said it'd be fine. I didn't really have a choice since we carpooled, so I tried to relax and have some fun. Brunch went on forever, and when we finished, we only had 1 hour for photos. I figured I'd be fine if cutting it close, and asked for the husband's help in keeping his family organized and moving. I planned out the normal shots with them, everyone together, family groups, kids. Then the husband started asking for couple photos and sibling photos as well. I texted my family and told them I'd be a little late, hoping it wouldn't be too bad because the husband would keep people moving. An hour and a half later, everyone was having a bad time. The kids were crying, and it was taking forever to get any shots at all. Why? Because the husband was yelling at people, hurling commands and orders, barking and foaming at the mouth. It was incredibly awful. The winery staff came over a few times and asked us to keep it down. The husband yelled at them too, and I was praying they'd kick us out. I tried telling the husband that I had to leave and that we could try for photos another time. The family tried to leave, but he stopped them, saying, "No, we must endure." When he told his son he was going to knock the snot out of him if he didn't stop crying, something snapped in me. I stopped trying to cheer people up, get fun photos, or capture happy smiles and just took the photos we needed so we could all go home. When I eventually got home, I did what I could with these miserable photos. I combined different frames to get group shots where everyone looked happy. Where that didn't work, I touched up facial expressions so people looked less upset. I stole bits of candid shots from earlier in the day. These were impossible masterpieces when I was through with them. I spent hours and hours making sure these pictures were going to hang in living rooms forever. Then I went through every single photo featuring the dad. Absolutely every one, and just enough to be slightly noticeable and just enough to look weird and awkward. I enlarged his head in every photo. This is why you don't do things for free, people. They end up taking advantage of the situation, and in the end, it upsets both sides. I'd really love to see the pictures with those slightly enlarged heads, though. It sounds hilarious. This next story is titled Calling Her Fake Quitting Bluff. This happened years ago, and it still makes me smile. I started working in a corporate office in a secretarial position for my first job after college. There were two older ladies who were also secretaries working in the office. One of them was just fine, but I spent most of my time sitting beside and working with Agnes. Agnes was quickly approaching retirement age, but wasn't going anywhere without a big push. This was in the days when we just started getting computers, and she was absolutely hopeless. She'd pull stuff like, "I can't answer the phone, I'm on the computer." Multitasking was not in this woman's repertoire. She was super fussy and annoying. If I ever came back from lunch 5 minutes late, she would loudly exclaim, "Oh my gosh, there you are! I was wondering what happened to you," making sure the whole office knew I was late. Meanwhile, she was usually late coming in the morning and often left early for various appointments. If I made a typo in a document, she would be sure the rest of the staff knew about it, loudly. She tended to pout when things didn't go her way, and she would quit her job when someone ticked her off, only for the boss's boss to talk her into staying. I'd heard about this tactic of hers. One day our boss did something that annoyed her, and she quit again. My boss's boss was away that day, so I had my chance. I quickly advertised and planned a big retirement party for her. It was a done deal by the end of the day. People were dropping by and congratulating her, and everyone looked forward to the party. At that point, I guess she figured it was too late to pull her usual shenanigans, and she actually retired. This next story is titled, It's for the Security of the Building. As a DoorDash driver, you'll run into many different types of people. Today, as I was making a delivery to a local hotel, I saw a man smoking right outside a side door, holding his room key card. I approached him and asked if he would be so kind as to let me through the door. He refused, telling me that they locked the door for the security of the building and that I'd have to go through the front to talk with the front desk staff. I told him that I was a DoorDash driver and was there to deliver some food, but he was like, "Nope, gotta go through the front." After going around and finishing the delivery, I saw the same man trying to open the door with his key to no avail. He saw me on the other side and knocked and waved, obviously wanting me to let him in. I politely waved back and turned the corner. I exited through a door maybe 50 feet down the hallway, and he caught me on my way to the car and said, "Why didn't you let me in?" With my smuggest face and most sarcastic voice, I told him, "Sorry, they lock those doors for the security of the building. I'm afraid you'll have to speak with the front desk." I proceeded to leave after receiving a few choice words from the fine gentleman. It does pose a security risk for random people who aren't staying in hotels to be in hotels, but with that said, very well played, PettyRevenge. Ope! This final story is titled, Making a Trip to the Bathroom Sexual, featuring Karen. I was about 18 or 19 at the time and babysat our neighbor's 3-year-old boy. He loved animals, and it was the middle of spring, so it was nice and warm. I decided to ask his mother if it would be fine to take him to a petting zoo in the city. Everybody was excited, me included, so we went. We had a ton of fun, and he got a large amount of animal feed so he could enjoy himself. Nothing was weird up until this point. Nobody was staring, and I felt it was pretty obvious that I wasn't his mother, but rather just babysitting him. Then came the time the little guy needed to pee. Not a problem, I thought to myself, so I took him to the toilets. There was a large line in front of the women's bathroom, but since I had to accompany him because he was too young to use the adult toilets himself, we couldn't just go into the men's bathroom, which was empty. I figured waiting in line for a minute or two wasn't going to be an issue. Then enter Karen. Karen tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hi, excuse me." I replied, "Yes." I thought since she had a little girl with her, she might have wanted to skip ahead in line, but she said, "Is this your child?" I replied, "Oh no, this is my neighbor's child. I'm just babysitting today." She asked, "Why are you taking him into the bathroom then?" At this point, she got very aggressive right away. I replied, "Excuse me? He needs to use the restroom and is clearly too young to do so by himself. So obviously, I'm accompanying him." "What am I supposed to do, just let him pee his pants?" Karen then said to me, "This is highly inappropriate. Only his parents should accompany him to the restroom. He's a boy, and on top of that, he's not even your child. Goodness knows what you might do in there with him." Okay, so now I'm getting kind of mad. At that point in my life, I dealt with a lot of nonsense from people since I was a nurse, and people in the hospital tend to be entitled as heck when they don't get their way. I was absolutely capable of defending myself with words, and I'd already lost my temper with her being so rude. So I said very loudly, "You think that I would look at his private parts in there? What the heck? Why do you have to make a bathroom trip with a small child so inappropriate like this? Do you think about that when you take your little girl to the bathroom?" "Oh my gosh, you're disgusting. That's disgusting." I said all of this very sarcastically, as it was just meant to scare her off, but I said it loud enough for a lot of people to hear and give her glares. Now everybody was looking at her, disgusted and whispering or even chiming in with me, telling her that thinking stuff like that was disgusting and that she should leave me alone. Karen looked mortified at this point and just backed away and left. I guess that's one way to diffuse that situation, just make it equally as awkward for the person who's making it awkward for you. Silly Karen. This next story is titled A Tire Trick. This morning, traffic was completely backed up due to a fender bender at a construction zone. A woman, let's call her Karen, decided to blast by everyone in the left-hand turning lane and force her way to the front. You could tell she was in a hurry. She had an older Ford SUV covered in dents and road rash. Lots of middle fingers and horns expressed their displeasure at her move, and she ended up right next to me. So I hatched my evil plan. I rolled down my window and honked at her. She ignored me, giving me the finger. So I waved at her nicely and pointed to her back tire, then motioned for her to roll down her window. I said, "Your tire's really low, it's almost flat. You might want to pull over to the gas station and put some air in there. Here, I'll let you in front of me." Karen smiled, said thanks, and pulled into the gas station. I drove off as she was getting out to check her perfectly fine tire. The gas station exit was right where the accident was, and it probably added 20 minutes to her commute to pull in there and try to get back out. Original poster, you're an evil genius. I'm going to have to take this one and add it to my arsenal. Karen's tire may have been fine, but hopefully, the thought of her being late to whatever she was rushing to get to left her feeling deflated. Oh, get it? Tires? Deflated? I'm so lame. This next story is titled, Handicapped Parking is for Handicapped People. My son and I were at the mall one day on a crowded Saturday. As I was looking for parking, I saw that a Lamborghini owner decided a handicapped spot near the entrance was set aside for him. I looked, and lo and behold, there was no sign of a placard or a handicap tag. This really frustrated me, and I was thinking about it the entire time we were shopping. I hate entitled people who think that because they have money, they can do whatever they please. We did our shopping and were in the mall for about an hour. When we came out, I noticed he had a ticket on his windshield. Great, at least he got what he deserved. But that wasn't enough for me. I have a nephew in my family who's in a wheelchair, so I know how important these spots are. I decided to get spiteful and pour some more salt in this open wound. I went to my car, grabbed some paper, and started writing. Then, I walked over to his car and left a note on his windshield that said, "I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to scrape your car with my wheelchair. I would leave my contact info, but you were illegally parked. The scrape is pretty deep, so good luck trying to get that out." I decided to sit and wait in my car to see who this entitled jerk was, and ended up waiting another half hour because I needed to see his reaction. He saw the ticket on the windshield, which didn't seem to faze him, and then he saw my note. I saw his eyes widen as he read through it, trying to comprehend what happened. A panicked look came over his face, and it was priceless. Then, he spent the next little while going over his car inch by inch, running his hand on every panel. I drove away, chuckling to myself. Hopefully he learned his lesson. You know what, original poster? The sad thing is he probably won't learn the lesson. I mean, what's a $300 parking ticket to these guys? It's basically pocket change. It doesn't matter what you drive though, guys, whether it's a Lamborghini or a rusty Honda Civic. If you don't have that placard, you can't park in those spots. Just be a good person. This next story is titled, Don't Insult My Engagement Ring. My fiancé and I have been dating for 4.5 years. In that time, we've bought a house together, adopted dogs together, and I put him through pharmacy school. We fell even more in love. He's an amazing man, and I'm crazy about him. Imagine my excitement after braving all the ups and downs and watching life unfold as a team when he proposed. I was overjoyed, through tears of happiness, and I said yes. The ring is a larger, slightly blush-pink amethyst stone with a halo of topaz around it, set in rose gold. I loved it. It was perfect. The next day, I was attending a baby shower for my best friend in my hometown. I checked my way there, and even though I tried to downplay my engagement because I wanted it to be about her, she made a mini announcement because I knew the people who were there. Most people offered congratulations, which was nice, except for her cousin. Let's call her Amy. She's super religious. Actually, everyone from my town is super religious. I appreciate their faith but don't like their judgment. She's voiced her opinions before on how people shouldn't live together unless they're married and all that jazz. So when she sauntered over, she took my hand in hers and scrutinized the ring. She more or less said that at least he was making an honest woman out of me and that he had taken too long to propose. Then, she scrunched her nose at my ring and asked what kind of stone it was in a snobby tone, with a little snobby half-smile on her face. She also said it was generic that he would ask me now that he's a graduate because that's what everyone does. I don't know what came over me. I love my ring and I've never been this mean girl, but I've known Amy for a while and she's always been like this. She likes to say what terrible decisions others have made and how she always puts Jesus first. So that's why her life has turned out so well. Well, I went for it. I said, oh, he waited until he knew he could provide for me. It's a pink diamond. Her whole face changed from smug to envious. She practically threw my hand down and muttered how she was happy for me. I looked up how big my petty lie had been later, only to find out that yes, pink diamonds are actually a thing, and the teeny ones are like $10,000. But hey, she doesn't have to know how poor we are. We're rich with unconditional love and loyalty, and that's why I'm happy to call him my future husband. The original poster also left a picture of her ring for everyone to see. If she likes it, that's all that matters. This next story is titled, Won't Lock the Door? Enjoy an Empty Room. This was a few years ago during my freshman year in college. I had worked hard in high school to save up enough cash to buy 2 TVs, a PlayStation 4, speakers, kitchen utensils, plates, a futon, and a few smaller items. The college I attended had suite-style living, where each roommate got his own individual room. There were 4 of us, so we had 4 rooms, 2 bathrooms, a small kitchen, and a great room or main room. Since I was the first one to move in, I got unpacked and settled, making sure to leave plenty of room for everyone to unpack and claim space in the bathrooms and other common areas. I set up 1 TV, the larger one, in the great room with my PlayStation 4 so we could all enjoy it, and I put my utensils and plates in the kitchen so we could all use those as well. I didn't mind sharing my stuff up to this point since I like to share and put my faith in others. However, I wouldn't be posting here if this trusting nature of mine hadn't changed. Here's the story. One night, a drunk college kid came barging into our room, screaming at the top of his lungs, waking me up. I was about to get out of bed until one roommate, the slob of the group, ran out and kicked him into the hallway. Since I left a lot of expensive items in the great room for us to use, this made me fear that anyone could walk in and steal my stuff, and that would be the last I'd see of them. So, I asked my roommates to lock the door if no one else was home, and we agreed on it. It worked for a few days until I noticed that I walked in, and no one was home but the door wasn't locked. Granted, they would go to a few friends' dorms across the hall, but they had been gone for almost 5 hours. I asked them again, and they blew me off. A 1-to-3 vote doesn't work too well at the college I attended as far as roommate agreements went, so there was nothing I could do. There were 3 more instances of foolish young freshmen walking into our dorm and either yelling or passing out on our couch with just the TV on and nothing playing. The straw that broke the camel's back was when I noticed that my dishes I was sharing were in the trash, along with some stainless steel utensils. As I looked around, I also saw one of the 4 controllers I had was smashed and under the couch, and my remote was completely lost. I finally asked them once more to lock the door and to try to respect my things that I shared with them, but they blew me off and said, "It's not like you use them, they're basically ours anyway." So, with this, I got petty, really petty. I started my revenge when they went off to get beer since they wanted to play the new Call of Duty game. I first started moving my TV and the PlayStation 4 into my room, along with everything else I had in there, as well as my futon, which was used as a second couch. It took me about 30 minutes of hard labor, but I finally packed up my dorm room. That was my petty part. Now for the revenge. After another 20 minutes, they returned with the whole group, and they were excited to play the new Call of Duty game until they noticed the entire great room was empty, save for the couch and the TV stand. I decided to leave before they got back, but I was receiving calls and texts for almost an hour, asking where I was and where all the stuff went. I decided to keep quiet and let them embarrass themselves in front of their friends. Not only that, but they confronted me on a few occasions to get me to surrender my items, or else they'd have to pay for new ones out of their pocket. I merely said, "Oh, sorry, but now they're locked behind my room door, since that's the only door that gets locked in this whole place." They were very unhappy and spent way more than I did on the items since I got back to school sales and work discounts on everything I bought. I probably paid nearly $1,400 for everything, and they paid nearly $2,100 to replace what I shared. I can tell you one thing for certain, it's fun to see three guys fight over a PlayStation 4 and a large TV since they all chipped in to pay for them. Anyway, that's my petty revenge, and I hope you enjoyed the read. Continue with this. Here's my thought on these story. Story 1. Be a condescending, jerkish vegan trying to order carryout? Enjoy a decidedly non-vegan meal when you get home opinion. This story is a delicious slice of petty revenge. The vegan woman's attitude, cutting in line, rolling her eyes, and trash-talking everyone, makes her the perfect target for this kind of karmic mix-up. I love how you didn't even have to lift a finger, she just grabbed the wrong order in her rush to be awful. Eating her tofu lo mein while she likely got home to chicken fried rice feels like poetic justice, especially since she was so smug about her dietary choices. I do feel a twinge of sympathy for the restaurant worker who might have caught her wrath later, but you played it perfectly by letting her storm off with the wrong meal. It's a satisfying reminder that sometimes the universe handles rude people without you needing to get your hands dirty. I'd bet she was fuming when she opened that box. Story 2. Never tick off the photographer opinion. Oh, this one had me grinning. The husband's behavior, yelling at his family, barking orders, and ignoring your time constraints, was infuriating, especially since you were doing this shoot for free. The way he turned a fun Mother's Day outing into a miserable ordeal makes me want to shake him. Your revenge, subtly enlarging his head in every photo, is pure genius. Petty enough to be harmless but noticeable enough to make him look ridiculous for years to come. I can just imagine those photos hanging in family homes, with everyone secretly wondering why he looks slightly off. It's a brilliant way to get back at someone who took advantage of your kindness. This story is a great lesson in not pushing people who are doing you a favor, and I'd kill to see those edited photos. Story 3. Calling her fake quitting bluff opinion. Agnes sounds like an absolute nightmare to work with. Hypocritical, petty, and dragging everyone down with her drama. Her habit of quitting just to get attention is so manipulative, and I love how you turned her tactic against her. Organizing a retirement party to lock her into actually leaving was a masterstroke. Smooth, effective, and just the right amount of petty. The way everyone started congratulating her, leaving her no room to backtrack, is hilarious. I can picture her squirming as her bluff was called. This story is a satisfying example of outsmarting someone who thrives on creating chaos, and it feels so good to know she was finally pushed out the door. Well played. Story 4. It's for the security of the building opinion. This is petty revenge at its finest. The guy's hypocrisy, refusing to let you in for security reasons but expecting you to let him in later, is maddening, and your response was perfection. Waving back and leaving him to deal with the front desk was such a simple yet effective way to give him a taste of his own medicine. The sarcastic delivery of "it's for the security of the building" is chef's kiss levels of smug, and I'm here for it. It's a small but oh so satisfying moment of justice that probably left him fuming. This story shows how a quick wit can turn a jerk's logic right back on them. Nicely done! Story 5. Making a trip to the bathroom sexual, featuring Karen opinion. Karen's behavior here is just infuriating. She took a completely innocent situation and twisted it into something gross and accusatory. Her assumption that you'd do something inappropriate with a child you're babysitting is not only offensive, but wildly out of line. Your response, turning her disgusting insinuation back on her loudly enough for everyone to hear, was absolutely brilliant. Shaming her in front of the crowd and getting others to join in was the perfect way to make her feel the weight of her own nonsense. I can imagine her slinking away, mortified, and it feels so deserved. This story is a great example of standing up to busybodies who project their weird assumptions onto others. You handled it like a pro. Story 6. A tire trick opinion. This is evil genius level petty revenge. Karen's reckless driving and entitled lane cutting make her the kind of person who deserves a little comeuppance. Your quick thinking to trick her into pulling over for a flat tire was brilliant. Simple, harmless, and guaranteed to mess with her day. The fact that she fell for it and likely got stuck in traffic for an extra 20 minutes is so satisfying. I can just picture her inspecting that perfectly fine tire, fuming as she realized she'd been played. This story is a great reminder that sometimes the smallest nudge can deliver big justice to someone who thinks they're above everyone else. Love the tire pun too. Deflated indeed. Story 7. Handicap parking is for handicapped people opinion. This story hits hard, especially with your personal connection to someone who needs accessible parking. The Lamborghini driver's entitlement, parking in a handicapped spot without a placard, makes my blood boil. The ticket was a good start, but your fake note about scraping his car with a wheelchair? That's next level petty. And I'm here for it. Watching him panic and obsessively check his car for a non-existent scrape must have been so satisfying. It's a clever way to make him sweat without causing any real harm. I agree, though. He probably didn't learn his lesson, as entitled people rarely do, but you gave him a moment of well-deserved stress. This story is a great mix of spite and creativity, and it's a reminder to respect those parking spaces. Story 8. Don't insult my engagement ring opinion. Amy's smug judgment about your engagement ring and your relationship is so infuriating. She sounds like the kind of person who thrives on putting others down to feel better about herself. Your quick comeback, claiming the amethyst was a pink diamond, was a perfect way to wipe that snobby smirk off her face. The shift from smug to envious must have been so gratifying to witness. I love that you stood up for your ring and your fiancé's thoughtful choice, turning her condescension into a moment of triumph. The fact that you later learned pink diamonds are insanely expensive just makes it even funnier. She probably still thinks you're rolling in wealth. This story is a great example of using wit to shut down a judgy critic, and it's heartwarming to hear how much you love your ring and your partner. Story 9. Won't lock the door. Enjoy an empty room opinion. Your roommate's blatant disrespect for your belongings and their refusal to lock the door is maddening, especially after you were generous enough to share your TV, PlayStation, and kitchen stuff. The trash dishes, smashed controller, and lost remote would have pushed anyone over the edge. Your revenge, packing up all your shared items and locking them in your room, was so well executed. Leaving them with an empty great room and forcing them to shell out $2,100 to replace what you'd bought at a discount is the kind of petty that feels deeply satisfying. I can imagine their shock and embarrassment when their friends saw the barren room. This story is a great lesson in not taking advantage of someone's kindness, and your calm, calculated response was perfection. Hope they learn to lock the door after that. That's it for this episode of our Petty Revenge series, guys. If you enjoyed it and aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button for future videos. If you didn't catch the last episode of our Pro Revenge series, it's a really good tale, so if you haven't heard it, click the video right now. I hope you guys got your revenge fix for the day, and I'll see you in the next one.